Hello, and welcome to Half the Year in Hell, the podcast for the ones who were made to carry what wasn't theirs. This is a place where we speak from the underworld and help you make your way on out.
This podcast is for educational purposes only. It is not a substitute for therapy. We are licensed therapists, but we are not your therapist. This podcast is for education and liberation, not diagnosis or treatment. Some episodes contain strong language and content related to trauma. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of Half the Year in Hell. I'm Anj.
I'm Sasha, and this is our podcast for scapegoats about getting out. Mm-hmm.
So today we're going to start with a story told by Sasha.
Mm-hmm.
We thought that we would maybe take a break from the case vignettes because they seem like they're not as engaging as the stories are. So y'all let us know.
Yeah.
Take it away.
Please feel free to let us know which one you like better, or if you want both, or how we could change them. We'd love feedback.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm thinking about this story from the African pantheon of gods and goddesses. And I'm thinking about, this is a Yoruba tradition story. And I am thinking about, this is the story of Oba. And I often have a really hard time thinking about Oba and remembering her when I'm thinking about the gods and goddesses. And I think it will probably make sense why. She is a wife to Shango, and Shango is also depicted as the partner of Oshun, who everyone knows about. And then there's also Oya, right? That's Storm. Storm rather is based on Oya. So Oba was married to Shango actually first, and again, no one really hears about her. They hear a lot about Oshun. And so they sorry, the dogs are distracting me, y'all. And also, I'm hearing Oshun because I'm like, oh, I'm talking about Oba, and I'm wearing this Oshun necklace. I love Oshun, so I'm not trying to cast any kind of shade there. But anyway, so let me tell you about what happens with Oba. So Oba is his wife. He starts kind of like, she's the first wife. He starts cheating on her with other women. He's cheating on her. He marries Oshun. He takes Oya as a concubine. So no one's really sure what is, whether it was Oshun or Oya. Different retellings say different things. But the bottom line is Oba was like A1 day one. And so she is being loyal to him, and she sees that, everyone knows Oshun is beautiful. And she is like, hey, I want to know how you get him to love you so much. What do you do? And Oshun says, oh, no problem. I got you, friend. This is what I'm going to tell you to do. Hold on. Stay quiet, Percy. Thank you. Good job staying quiet. So she's like, this is what I'm about to tell you to do, sis. You need to go ahead and cut off a piece of your ear, and you need to make a soup with the piece of the ear.
All right.
I would be out.
Not what I would do, but
no,
okay.
I'm not ride or die like that.
Uh-huh.
So she ends up cutting off a piece of her ear. She serves it in this soup, and she invites Shango over. She's so excited. She invites him over, and he eats the soup and he spits it out. And he's like, what is this? And she's like, oh, it's a piece of my ear. They had told me to put it in there. And he's disgusted. He's angry. He's annoyed. I would be too, actually. And he ends up banishing her, actually. Her story doesn't stop there, but we can talk about that part of it another day. But I think the reason why I thought of this story is it's not just that she's a scapegoat right in this little system, but it's also that why does she keep on staying? That's the question. People ask me usually after they leave, why did I stay so long? It's certainly a question I've asked myself. Why did I stay so long? Not only like, why did she stay so long with Shango? Why she stay so long in the whole system? Why did she even trust Oshun and Oya?
Also, like, we're just cutting off pieces of our bodies
Right, like,
and
we're gonna
sending them
go
in
why
soup.
would we go to that extreme?
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
Uh-huh. Because it's really interesting too when you're in this position of being a scapegoat. People tell you stuff, and you're so invalidated sometimes that you just go for it. And she was
Uh,
like, "You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna cut off my ear and put it in the soup. It's actually a good idea."
yeah.
Yeah. And then she like literally cuts off a piece of herself, and it still doesn't make a difference in the system that she's being oppressed in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. People will go out of their way to, like, harm themselves because they get so addicted to the system.
Mhm. I think that one of the things that we like wanted to focus on in this episode is like the idea of a trauma bond and like what is a trauma bond? Why does it keep us like so stuck in here? What does it look like for us to like not be able to navigate ourselves out because it's such an addicting place to be in?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I'm thinking about how the trauma bond works in so many ways. And again, these topics are also broad and they're interconnected. That
Hmm.
sometimes like it's hard for me to stay in one place with it. But I think where I'm at right now with it is that I'm thinking about the addictive nature and the chemicals that happen in your brain,
Hmm.
how you're in this system, and how it's interesting because she was like, to me, I'm seeing there she's being scapegoated because she's addicted to her relationship with Shango and being kind of like pushed to the side while he does whatever.
Hmm.
And then she's also trauma bonded to her role in the system of being kind of like the outsider,
Hmm.
while these other two wives are favored, and she's just kind of like the loyal and dutiful one.
Hmm. Hmm.
And so I'm thinking about how like people's brains will actually get chemically addicted to it. They get a serotonin
Hmm.
rush, and they are so used to the way of being
Hmm.
that's happening in the system that they feel like if they leave, they will die.
Hmm.
And if you are like, hey, don't cut your ear off,
Hmm.
that's maybe going a little bit too far.
Hmm.
Don't do it. Maybe they don't like you like that.
Hmm.
If you want to cut your ear off because you want to cut your ear off, that's cool. But surely don't do it and feed it to somebody else.
Hmm.
Surely don't. And they will get mad at you and they will turn on you because you're actually trying to make them go cold turkey, which is why you don't interrupt people, right? I'm thinking about like how hard it is even when people have come to therapy
Hmm.
and they've made an agreement, right? Because coming to therapy is, hey, I'm going to be really open to your feedback and your insight.
Hmm.
But like, how many times do people also like try to get involved in someone else's stuff and
Hmm.
then they get turned on, when it's outside of therapy? It's hard enough when we're in a place where people are asking for help
Hmm.
and they still sometimes turn on you because they get that negative feeling and they think, oh, that negative feeling can't actually come from this other person who's hurting me.
Hmm.
It must come from you, the person who's telling me.
Hmm.
Hmm.
You know, I think that one of the things that comes up for me is I've absolutely had that role in the system of like being someone where someone's trying to wake me up, and I'm like, well, no, you're the bad person. You
Uh-huh.
have to be the bad person because this person is so pedestalized in my brain from all the abuse and all the scapegoating and the gaslighting, all this other stuff. Like, there's no possible way.
Uh-huh.
It just doesn't exist.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. I think
Hmm.
that one of the things, I had a good friend that told me about this book called Betrayal Bond.
Hmm.
And I was really trying to take this apart for myself because I was trying to figure out, why am I doing this?
Yeah.
Why am I staying? Why do I keep going from one place to one place? Or even worse, you tell me if I'm jumping around too much here, just feel free to reel me back in. I'm thinking about like how when you're in the system
Hmm.
and you leave the system,
Hmm.
then you also like feel bad and you're like, I should be so happy because I had been trying to get out of this system,
Hmm.
or I had been trying to get out of this abusive relationship for so long. And then you're just like depressed after you get out of it, and you're kind of like wanting to go back,
Hmm.
and you're thinking, okay, that was my safety. And that's like, you, your brain is literally thinking that it's associating with that dopamine release, and how that dopamine release that you get with the intermittent reward is creates the addiction. Mhm.
Let's talk about love bombing for a second, right?
Yes,
Because
yes.
how do you even get that addiction response?
Yeah, yeah.
And I think of like, for example, in like a romantic relationship, it might be that someone comes in really hot at first, and like you've seen each other twice, and they are buying you plane tickets to Italy, or like there's like these grand gestures of love,
Uh-huh.
and it
Their
feels
favorite
good.
song is your favorite song.
Uh-huh. They're mirroring you also,
Uh-huh,
right? So like
uh-huh,
you have like this reflection that's walking around, which is maybe part of like the scapegoat's narcissism, but that's a whole
uh-huh,
other thing,
uh-huh,
right? But they're coming in with these like grandiose displays, and you're usually isolated or lonely, or like you're not used to people being intimate with you in any kind of way. So you're like, this feels great. This is what I've seen on the Hallmark channel. This is how love works. It's realistic. It's not creepy at all that someone just went out and bought me like a brand new car, and like I've known them for 2 hours from the
mhm,
bar.
mhm.
So you start getting like these hits of dopamine or serotonin or like whatever feel good chemical that you're having.
Uh-huh.
And it starts to reinforce the relationship. But then the narcissistic person will withdraw
Yes.
and say, like, no, 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 I'm not going to sustain this. Of course, I'm not going to sustain this, but I got you now.
Uh-huh.
So you're always chasing after like this initial high after they turn the dial all the way back down. And like you can't get back to that initial stage and that initial like feel good button. The
Yes.
same thing happens with kids, right? So, like, if you have a parent that's like sometimey or a parent that's just completely neglectful, and they give you like little pops of like attention, you're just like, okay, like, what can I do to reinforce this behavior and have
Right,
it happen over and over again?
right.
Ooh, it's like a slot machine.
Uh-huh, it is,
Yeah.
it is. It's yeah, it's definitely like a slot machine, it's like gambling.
Hmm.
And I'm also thinking about how, like, they will the thing that's making it like a slot machine is, right, like, they go through that. I love that you're talking about the love bombing because that's the setting the stage for the addiction to happen, that's that first high.
Hmm.
Right? And then the next part of it is where the slot machine stuff comes in, where it's like, okay, they're mostly invalidating, but once in a while,
Hmm.
sometimes maybe it's not even every third time or every fourth time, it's no regular schedule. Every once in a while, you might be able to get through to them.
Hmm.
That's what people will say. I got through one time. They did apologize for this.
Hmm.
Well, they did say sorry and take me to Cheesecake Factory. So you're like,
Why
too
do people like,
specific, too specific.
it's okay. I'm not gonna start that today. Go ahead.
And so I think that like they'll be like, oh, they did this. And so now they're really addicted to this, like, oh, sometimes they apologize, sometimes they don't. If I can just figure this out and keep them doing it on a regular basis. And so it's really important to me when I'm working with people. I think that's why I wanted to talk about this.
Hmm.
It's so important to me when I'm working with people for me to explain to them, no, like, I understand that you feel like you're thinking clearly,
Hmm.
but your brain is chemically and physically addicted.
Hmm.
And also, the reason why I couldn't tell you before,
Hmm.
because most of the time people don't get mad. Every once in a while, people get angry because you didn't tell them.
Hmm.
But it feels like sometimes when you're working with someone, and this is why I tell people, if they come in and they're like, my friend is in an abusive relationship, don't say anything to them, please.
Hmm.
Let them make it.
Step out the way.
Step out of the way, because when you're working with people, even clinically, with all this training we have, you're holding like this space, right? Because you don't want to encourage them to go further into the system. You know that their brain is addicted, and you know that if you say anything too directly, when they have this huge drop
Hmm.
in the dopamine
Hmm.
and the serotonin, they're associating the drop.
Hmm.
Like, here you are, reality. You're like, here's reality. This is what's happening to you. This is what's going on. Their brain does this drop,
Hmm.
and they confuse the drop.
Hmm.
They think you're the one that's at fault.
Mhm, mhm,
Hmm.
mhm. I've definitely been a person that's like, ooh, if someone told me something and I don't like it, they must be a bad person.
Uh
Click.
huh.
And
Uh
you just
huh.
kind of turn it off.
Uh huh.
Also, I like how Percy's barking in lowercase.
Uh
He's trying to be
huh.
polite, but just like under
Uh-huh.
his breath.
He's like, I'm not going to interrupt too much, but also I got to keep it safe around here
This is good
because this is
information.
my job.
All 20 pounds.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Yeah. So, like, we talked about how the trauma bond is addicting, and we talked about how people kind of like go for it. Another thing that we can talk about is what is it like for you to have like a previous narcissistic relationship that leads you towards another narcissistic relationship with the same thing?
Oh, sure, it's that attachment style.
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
Uh-huh. And it's like, that's when you're thinking about, to me anyway, I'm wondering if you're thinking of something else, right? But I'm thinking about how it even starts in the beginning when people are like, how did I get into an abusive relationship
Uh-huh.
in the first place? My very first one.
Mhm.
How did I sit here and tolerate this all the time? And you're trying to get people to look back at their family system. And when you're trying to get them to look back at their family system, you're not trying to get them to like go and blame people,
Mhm.
but you're trying to get to figure out, it's like a mystery. You're trying to figure out, where did you learn? Where did your system learn that this intermittent reward
Mhm.
was what's appropriate and healthy from an attachment figure, so that now you're going into the relationship
Mhm.
and you're mistaking this feeling for love. What were the formative experiences that happened to you that made you set up and pre-wired for this
Mhm.
with your attachment style? That, oh, if somebody is distant, they love me, or if somebody is doing push pull with me, they
Mhm.
love me. What happened that you got started there? But also, that's me looking at it through a systemic lens.
Mhm.
I'm curious where you were going with it.
Where I was going with it is the ways in which we have like autonomy, right? We have
Uh-huh.
this ability to make decisions, but we also tend to blame ourselves for the decisions that we're making without the context of how we got there.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, like I have people that are like, "Why did I do X, Y, and Z?" And it's like, well, maybe it was the time that your dad left you in a hot car to go inside and go gamble, and you almost suffocated. And like at like 3, you had to save yourself, and like you just had like this self preservation from a really young age. And you're
Uh-huh.
like, okay, the adults around me are not going to take care of me, so I do. So I'm overgiving and I'm doing all this other stuff, and now I'm ending up with another person who is leaving me in a hot car.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I love that as a lens of like the part about blaming yourself.
Hmm.
I think that's so true because when I understood and learned about the trauma bond
Hmm.
and realized that it's chemical in my brain, um, I started to be able to forgive myself, because I
Hmm.
think that's the other thing is when you leave the system, you can be in the shame hole. You're like, why did I put up with this for
Hmm.
so long? Abuse survivors will say this all the time. Like, I can't believe, I put up with this for so long. And especially when they are maybe somebody who is, it's really messed up because a lot of times you'll see people who are trauma bonded in an abusive relationship and people
Hmm.
will go, why did I put up with this person? They're not attractive. They're not intelligent. They're not creative.
Charming.
They're not charming. They don't have any resources.
Hmm.
Why was I still going ahead and staying with this person? And why was I like sitting here letting this person abuse me
Hmm.
when I objectively know that I have all these things going on compared to them?
Hmm.
And people, you see it all the time. You see people doing this all the time. And it's like, oh, the reason why you stayed is because they did something that was familiar to you
Hmm.
with your attachment style, and every place you're going, what your it's like your meter is off.
Hmm.
The I used to have a person that I used to be friends with used to call this your picker's broken.
Hmm.
This is when this is when your picker's broken. This is what it
Uh-huh.
means to have a broken picker, is that your system, a healthy system knows to be secure. They get certain healthy signals and know that this is what good feels in a relationship, and their brain responds to this. But if you've been really scapegoated and abused since childhood,
Mhm.
and sometimes this is not even in your family of origin, right? Because this is again where I love to bring in the systemic lens, because sometimes people will come in and they're a marginalized person. And let me be clear, right? Like, say this is a person who is Black and maybe they're queer. And they're like, they'll come in and they'll say, that I'm going to use this. This is a good one because we practice right in the South right
Mhm.
now. Both of the states are in the South, right? So this is a Black queer person, um, and they're living in the South, but they have a great family,
Mhm.
but they're getting abused at work, or
Mhm.
they keep on getting in abusive relationships with different partners.
Mhm.
They will say, "Well, but my parents really loved me." And sometimes the parents didn't love them and they're confused, right? It can happen two ways. One of it can be that they think that their parents loved them that they didn't.
Mhm.
But sometimes, actually, I have had people come in where they actually do come from a fairly healthy family system where they
Mhm.
had the good enough parent that we
Mhm.
talk about with attachment. They had the good enough parent. But the problem is, y'all whole family is marginalized and y'all whole family is being treated badly. Y'all whole family is being abused.
Mhm.
Y'all whole family is being exiled by the community. Or, this also happens when people are immigrants a lot. This
Mhm.
happens a lot, actually. That would have been a more appropriate parallel to draw. I find this a lot in immigrant families, right? The immigrant family itself is healthy. They had
Mhm.
a healthy bond. There was no real trauma, but the trauma was environmental. The
Uh-huh.
trauma was not interpersonal, really. It was environmental. They have a good attachment to each other,
Mhm.
but for whatever reason, they've had to leave their home. And then they're leaving their home and moving to another place. Now they've had a trauma of losing the place, but also now you're in a new place and everyone's treating you like you're the bottom of the barrel.
Yeah.
And so your parents may have been putting all this love into you, but they're also under abuse.
Mhm.
And so they are y'all are developing this trauma bond with the system.
Mhm.
And so it kind of starts to become familiar to you that, oh, you're going to go into a job and, oh, this is what it's supposed to feel like.
Mhm.
And you just start getting to the place where you've been so marginalized. Maybe your parents are great to you, but when you go to school, your teachers are marginalizing
Yep. Yep.
you,
Yep. Yep.
the peers are marginalizing
Mhm.
you. So now you think you have all these friends who are bullies, and your mama's at home, and your mama's like, "Hey, I love you. Why are you letting these kids be mean to you?"
Mhm.
And it's like, "Oh, you're trauma bonded." That chemical addiction.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that we need to really talk about that a lot more. Like we talk about it in like codependency literature, like how
Uh-huh.
it's like, oh, it actually is an addiction. Like it it doesn't like necessarily feel good always. Sometimes it just feels like different,
Uh-huh.
especially when you're kind of like anxious all the time or depressed all the time. And I think one of the things that comes up for me is people having a hard time telling the difference between he's okay. Telling the difference between being excited and being anxious because they
Oh,
can't they can't differentiate.
the
Yeah.
intensity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's one of those things where I once had a professor, Dr. Gloria Hamilton, which rest in peace, beautiful human being.
Yeah.
She's free now.
Yeah.
She was telling the story about how she would have clients. I think that they maybe domestic violence,
Mhm.
and she would say that like she started to identify butterflies as a warning sign and not like this feel good thing that you're supposed to have because it's literally your body being like, this is familiar, stay away from this person, I'm
Uh-huh.
churning, this is not butterflies.
Uh-huh.
And if you don't know like kind of like what the difference is, you're kind of just you're moving towards it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
it's
You get that
reinforced.
intensity confused for intimacy. That was a key concept for me to stop connecting with people in that way
Hmm.
because, like, you do have to learn. I'm thinking about my therapist even telling me when you meet someone that's healthy, because I was like, at this point, I'm so trauma bonded. I've been scapegoated in my family of origin. I've been scapegoated in the world. I've been scapegoated with a partner. I've moved from system to system being scapegoated. I don't even know what healthy feels like anymore. And I realized that I'm cross wired to not have secure attachment and really not know what healthy feels like.
Hmm.
But also, like, now, how will I know? And I
Hmm.
remember that she told me it will feel very different than anything you've experienced.
Yeah,
Hmm.
whenever I was trying to figure out whether or not to leave my system, I was just like, oh, this is the first time that I've experienced a healthy exchange with someone.
Yeah.
This is the first time that I have like not felt anxious in my body. Like this is the first time that like I've disabled like the static on the TV is turned off and now I can see the picture.
Hmm.
So then like you have that domino thing where like you either meet someone or someone's helping you get out of the system and like things start to come into place, but it takes such a long time to unpack from that trauma bond and to move away from it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and I think how many times people come into me and they're like, "Oh, I have to let go of everything and everyone."
Yeah.
And it's such a hard thing to say to people, and I know I have done that myself. Like, I will be like, "But what about just this one person? What about just this one thing? What about just this one place? What about this?" And it's because you've trauma bonded to all these systems,
Mhm.
and now you're trying to figure out what's wrong because now I've experienced something healthy, maybe in therapy, right? Risks and benefits of therapy,
Mhm.
maybe in relationship, and you're like, "Oh, all of these are bad. What's going on?" It's very disorienting.
Mhm.
Mhm.
It's really interesting too because the more privilege someone has, the harder it is for them to leave the system that they're in.
Yeah.
And like sometimes with clients that have a lot of marginalization, I'm just like, "Hey, sis, like this is what's happening," and they're
Uh-huh.
like, "Oh, you're validating my reality. Thank you."
Uh-huh. Especially at their job. If it pays six
Yes.
figures, don't try to tell somebody that their job is not right if it pays six
Look,
figures.
the more benefit they get from staying in the system, the more they're going to be like, "Nah, I'm
Mhm.
actually going to go ahead and like receive the
Mhm.
privilege that I get with staying here,
Mhm.
receiving the money, receiving the access, receiving the whatever it
Also,
is."
don't try to tell somebody that the person they dating is an asshole, the person cute.
And sometimes even more so if they're more attractive.
Uh-huh. 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 Anyway,
Um,
sorry.
uh-huh. So we talked about trauma bonds. We talked about like kind of like the somatics of it, right? Like the butterflies or like mistaking these different feelings for something that feels good.
Also, it's coming up for me. I'm sorry I'm interrupting, but it's
It's
actually
okay.
coming up for me right now.
Hmm.
The trauma bonding.
It's from God.
I'm it is. I'm thinking about how right now I am feeling a lot of anxiety
Hmm.
about talking about this.
Hmm.
The next thing that I'm going to say, and I think it's going to be a beautiful illustration of it, but if not, y'all forgive me. I'm thinking right now, I was feeling like this urge that I
Hmm.
wanted to. I'm explaining how my trauma bond works now. So,
Mm.
this is a systemic trauma bond.
Hmm.
So, I had this urge that I wanted to use an example.
Hmm.
This is going to be a pretty specific example. And I feel like I was nervous
Hmm.
and like I'm doing something wrong by me saying this, like I might get canceled or somebody's going to come and get me. And it's because I am trauma bonded
Hmm.
to the systems of power, just like everybody else is,
Hmm.
right? Because you have to be in order to tolerate it.
To survive
Your
also.
brain actually needs to keep on doing that because you have to stay close to the person that's harming you so that you can watch them all the time, right? So you're constantly paying attention to what's going on in the system.
Hmm.
And as a Black, queer, neurodivergent person, I'm super trauma bonded. So I am thinking about, I remember that there was this show, I actually told you about it.
Hmm.
And this is one of the first times we talked, and it was about Sam. It was the Sam J. I don't remember what the show was. And when she
Yeah.
would do a great show, she would do all those little.
Uh-huh.
They would do all those vignettes. I think they
Uh-huh.
use she/they pronouns,
Sure.
and so they would do all these little vignettes. And there was one really great one where they asked a psychotherapist,
Hmm.
"Do you, can you define an abusive relationship?" And it was a white lady.
Oh, okay.
And they said, "Can you define an abusive relationship, from a therapeutic lens?" And then the lady told them this and this and this. The therapist says everything.
Hmm.
And so, and for those of y'all who don't know, Sam J is like this. Let me give context. It's a Black queer comedian. And they do stand up, but they also had a show that was like, I don't know if it's still going, but they had a show that was like political commentary. So they
Hmm.
would talk about a different topic each time. And on this particular episode, the therapist was the one that they were interviewing about abuse. And so that right at the very last scene, they asked the therapist, "So do you think Black people are in an abusive relationship with the United States of America?" And the therapist, I don't even remember what the therapist answered because my breath was held. I actually do not, I'm trying to remember what the person said.
Yeah.
I just remember it being like, well,
She said the quiet part out loud.
uh-huh, uh-huh.
Uh-huh.
And so I'm thinking about that, right? And I think that when you talk about Black people being in an abusive relationship with the United States,
Hmm.
I'm now actually thinking about how if you're in an abusive relationship, then you also have a trauma bond.
Hmm.
to the United States
Yeah.
and to capitalism and to all of these different systems of oppression,
Mhm.
you're actually trauma bonded. And anybody who's marginalized is trauma bonded to these systems because it is an abusive relationship. We are set up here on a power
Mhm.
structure. And so it makes so much sense to me. Again, I feel shame for even admitting this. Like, let me just go ahead and externalize what I'm feeling so that I can kind of like break the trauma bond a little bit. I feel like this is part of why when you start trying to get people to unpack systems, and
Mhm.
I'm going to use myself as an example, when I started going to therapy, I was using the school districts.
Mhm.
I've worked in a few different school districts, and I've always used the school districts work. What is it when they give you, you know what I mean? Like that you can have so many, if you have a stressful job,
Mhm.
they'll give you employee assistance
EAP.
program, right?
Yeah.
And so they are real heavy on the employee assistance program credits in most school districts, at least they were when I was working in them, because it's traumatic, right? And so it would be, I was doing Spanish language learners that were having learning disabilities.
Mhm.
Okay, so I'm like dealing with the most marginalized people in the system at this point, um, of the school, right?
Mhm.
And so I'm going from school to school, and because I'm teaching the most marginalized people, because I've got this big heart as a scapegoat, I'm also now being marginalized within the school,
Mhm.
right? And so I would use these employee assistance program credits, and I would go into the therapist because that's what you're going for, is right, to talk about your job.
Mhm.
So this is how like I had my first little access to therapy. So I go in and I talk about my job, and I'd be like, and this is what I did, and this is what I did, and this is what I did, and I wrote the IEP in this way, and then I CC'd this person, and then I smiled in this particular way, and then I turned my chair in this particular way, and then the therapist would just be looking at me like, yeah. And I would be like, okay, now tell me what else I'm supposed to do. And they'd be like, there's nothing you can do.
Mhm.
And I was so upset that when I left from teaching, somebody had to go pack up my classroom because I really thought like, oh, I'm doing a great job. I'm here. I'm people love me.
Mhm.
I'm getting paid. People are like, oh, Sasha, good job teaching the most marginalized of people. And really, I felt like I was doing something bad by
Mhm.
leaving and walking away, even though I was getting sick. I was having all these autoimmune issues. I'm having all of this mental health stuff going on. I thought that I was doing something wrong by leaving the school district.
It's also the hypervigilance because you're like, whenever I left, I was like, "Oh, people are watching me. This is what's happening." Da 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 da. And that's actually all true. Like all that stuff did happen because the people that I'm talking about are kind of creepy,
Uh huh.
right?
Uh huh.
But also, like, it's just like, oh, like you hear a loud noise and you're just like looking around and you're just like, okay, what happened and how can I get to safety?
What did I do? Not even just what happened. What did I do? What am I about to get blamed for?
So then what ends up happening is you go through these phases of like meeting new people and either being so fearful that you don't connect with them or you go a little too hard and you don't have boundaries and then they're the same people that you like just left the system of.
Uh huh.
And what I find, at least for myself, and I don't know if you relate to this, is like every time I go through different people, they're getting a little less narcissistic, but it's getting to the point where
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm having to like figure out what the micro boundaries are because like here's how they're pushing it.
Uh huh.
And
Uh
I'm
huh.
so codependent because like I feel bad when I'm not stepping in to help.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm thinking about how you have to give yourself time. Yes, after a relationship, that
Mhm.
this is why they always say give yourself time. Because if you are going through that withdrawal from that other relationship,
Mhm.
then when somebody comes in, all they got to do is the bare minimum and meet the space where you weren't being met before.
Mhm.
And it's just enough to get you not, it's like using one drug to tailor off of another.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
So this guy doesn't do anything with the kids ever. And like I have these like 4 kids that I have to raise by myself. So I
Mhm.
need someone that's hands-on. So here's a family man and he's involved with the kids, but
Yes.
also he's manipulating me financially. So here's another
Yes.
person that does X, Y, and
Uh-huh.
Z, but like the piece is missing and there's something else. And like
Yes.
you just kind of like keep going down this rabbit hole of like here's these intense relationships where like it's not as intense because they know that they're going to scare me off because of the abuse that I just
And you're
experienced.
like, "What's wrong with me? I just keep on picking wrong."
Mhm. Mhm.
Mhm.
Or like you go from like one job where they're like, you have a 5-minute lunch break and like we're actually going to take you off the clock, but also you need to work the whole time
Well, I
through.
kept transferring different schools,
And that's the thing, right? So like you just like keep getting the
different
thing that like
subjects. I kept getting more
slightly changes.
certifications.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh-huh,
yeah.
uh-huh.
It slightly changes and you're just like, "Oh, this is so much better." And it's just like, "Okay, but like what does better actually look like?"
Well, and then you're deepening in the shame because everyone's looking at you like, "What's wrong with you?
Mhm.
Why can't you pick correctly? What's happening with you? You're so dysfunctional." And it's like your system is miswired and there's no place and time for you to do what you actually need to do, which is take time for yourself and be able to heal
Mhm.
and be able to get your system rebalanced so that from a safe and fresh place where you're connected with yourself and you have that really secure attachment,
Mhm.
right? That you can now, oh, this is what it feels like to be treated well. And people do not want to treat themselves. And I mean, like, you'll be like, hey, it's time for you to take care of yourself. That's the only thing you can do right now because you're trying to get them to reset their system
Mhm.
so that when they meet someone new or they go to a new place, that they'll know what regulated feels like
Mhm.
instead of going off of that original thing that you were talking about, the big love bombing that you know
Mhm.
that they got, either in their childhood or in their past relationship or maybe all of the above and plus some, you know. And they have a really hard time doing that thing that is self-care because they've been trained to keep their attention on that narcissistic person, system, whatever it is.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Mhm. It's exhausting. I'm actually tired talking about it.
I
I
am too.
think this might be
This
a good place to
I
end.
do too. I do too.
Okay.
See y'all next time.
Thanks for listening.